What's up, humans? Welcome to the Human Music Podcast. I'm Luke Rain. My co-hosts are Tesco and Rip Kinney, and we are all music producers, artists, and producer coaches. This show is where we discuss all things music production and interview amazing creatives about their origins, their process, and whatever else comes up. This week is episode 119, Dream Tonic on her songwriting process. From starting composing as a 6-year-old to being trained as a concert pianist, Dream Tonic has been deep in music her entire life. She talks about her education, her time as a keyboardist for a 10-piece all-female Brazilian band, diving into being a vocalist, overcoming the fear of learning how to produce her own music, finding Producer Dojo, the feedback process for releasing her EP, getting her EP remixed, her songwriting process, collaborating with Rip Kinney, balancing being a mom and a musician, why she makes music, and so much more. You can find her at dreamtonicmusic.com and follow her at Dream Tonic. The song of the week is her tune Loving's Coming Down on Me. That's a collab with Ill.Gates. You can find the links to that below and find it on the Song of the Week Spotify playlist. Links down there for that too. You can also support our sponsors while you're down there, like Dojo TV. That's free producer live stream classes from the Dojo Senseis and where we recorded this. You could have been in the chat with us asking Dream Tonic questions. Tesco's Patreon, where you can get some track feedback, private lessons, access to his project files, and much more. The weekly download, where you can learn from our mentor ill.gates and his private weekly group lessons and get access to over 250 more episodes in the archive for just $20 a month. And guest practices, where you can learn from Seth Drake at the Approach Institute. He's the best engineer we know, and your first class over there is free. And check out thehumanmusicpodcast.com so you can find all the things we do and much more. And yeah, let's just get on into this episode.
Hello, people of Earth. This is Tesco with Rip Kenny and Trap Jesus, and you're listening to the Human Music Podcast. Woo!
Human Music Podcast. I like it. What's up, humans?
Yo. Hey friends. Hey, humans.
Got a fly buzzing around me. Must be that sweaty and stinky from my day of working hard in the sunshine. Gosh, it's hot in Seattle right now.
It is hot in Bend too. Oh my god.
Well, heat wave. How's things up in the great frozen north there, Tesco?
It's actually been like boiling hot lately, like uncomfortably.
That sounds like a Midwest summer. What about you, Dream Tonic?
I'm in San Diego, and it's pretty spicy down here right now.
Ooh, I believe you, SoCal.
Yeah,
well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been kind of a long time coming. Me and you have been working on some things under wraps behind the scenes. They're about to come out in about 2.5 weeks, so it's only fitting that we had you on the show.
Exactly. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Ooh, it's coming soon. So that'd be like a week and a half from when people are listening to this in the future times, right?
Oh shit! Yeah, the album comes out August 11th, and yeah, there will be.
Tell us about it.
Album. It's a thing.
We're gonna have to work on this elevator pitch, bro.
You know, I just don't want to talk about myself when we have a lovely guest on this show.
No, but you're talking about the album she's featured on.
That there's one song that we like fully collaborated on. Got like an amazing vocal from her, and it's like a huge piece of the story. And then another towards the end that has some kind of spoken word vocals from her that really kind of tie things together. And then another one with some samples we layered in together. So yeah, we've been working on some stuff, and you'll be hearing it on the album. But enough about me. Kristen, so Dream Tonic. Usually Luke asks this question, so it feels a little strange for me to be doing it.
You do great.
Also a little fitting. On the show, we like to ask about your superhero origin story. So basically how you got into music, how you got to where you are today, in any order or fashion that you please.
Awesome. Okay. So I have been basically a piano player, musician since I was 6. I started taking piano lessons when I was a little wee one. And I loved it so much that I started composing music in my head. I was creating songs at the piano from a very young age. I didn't yet know how to read music. And so I actually invented this form of graphic notation to notate my compositions, which I actually still have like in a little scrapbook. And it's like a combination of squares and triangles and lines and circles and like squiggles and things. And yeah, and so
that's what music notation looks like to me anyway. So same difference.
Yeah. So I always knew that I was like, I was a composer and I had a little 4-track thing at one point, and it was super fun. And I don't know. So I ended up going to a performing arts high school when I was, a freshman in high school. And it was like full on, like go to school from 8 to 6 every day, study piano theory or music theory, piano pedagogy, music history, music, anything to do with piano and music. I got to sit with my headphones on for 2 hours a day during my actual school day and just play music. And so
that sounds incredible.
It was a really amazing time in my life to be able to go to school with a bunch of fellow artists. There were musicians and dancers and visual artists and everything like that. And we had a lot of performance opportunities. We traveled all over the country, and it was it was just like my time when I just focused and just practiced and played Beethoven and Chopin and Debussy, and just I was a classically trained pianist, so I did a lot of concerts and stuff. So fast forward to college, I joined a 10-piece all-women's Brazilian band, and I was the keyboardist in the band. We did the whole festival circuit. It was super fun. We got to collaborate with Bass Nectar and like open up for Michael Franti and Brett Dennen and Ozo Motley. And it was really fun, like playing on some big stages like that. And I was also getting my master's in music at the time too. So it was like doing the festivals, and I was teaching music full time. And then I was also like doing the festival circuit. It was just like madness. I was probably just 70 hours a week just doing things. And so at some point I was like, okay, I'm going to not do the band anymore. And that's when I focused on like my master's full time. And I just did the school thing for a bit. And then I was a music educator for many years. I put on huge shows. I would orchestrate like large scale performances with, high schoolers doing, I would take Bach and I would like orchestrate it for 100-piece xylophone ensemble. I would just do all sorts of different styles of music and put on huge shows with large groups of people. So that was good for like event planning and learning how to work with different people, like kind of sussing out the situation of what does this person need? What does the group need? How can I help them? Like it was a fascinating endeavor, is to like be a music educator. It was challenging in so many ways and so incredibly gratifying in others. Fast forward, I had 2 kids, and I was like, I can't see kids all day and then like go be nice to my kids. I just couldn't.
It's a lot. That's a lot of energy output. Like I know all 3 of us can speak for the teaching side, at least in production. Like it is very rewarding and also takes a lot of energy. Like you have to be really engaged to teach. It's
so true. Yeah. And it's like such a creative endeavor too. It's just, there's so much freedom in it. And it requires a high degree of emotional intelligence, I think, because you have to kind of
It
Like,
really does.
Yeah, you have to have all your like hackles up and senses going. And
Yeah, you got to be a coach and a cheerleader and a friend, emotional support,
Right.
Unlicensed therapist.
licensed
Totally.
therapist at times, for sure.
Exactly. And yeah.
I'm surprised at this point in the story we have heard zero mention of you singing.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask.
Like, what?
Yeah, so singing is kind of new for me. I did major in music in college, and I attribute my ability to hold a pitch and harmonize and all that kind of stuff. We had to do this gnarly atonal sight singing for 4 years.
Whoa.
And it was like the bane of everybody's existence. But I secretly kind of loved it because it made me have to sharpen my tonal capabilities. Like if I would see a minor 6 going to an augmented 4th or whatever, like a tritone, I would have to then hear it in my head and be able to then vocalize it. So I feel like that in and of itself like trained my ear to be able to sing.
What did that kind of look like? Was it more intervals based, or like reading like sheet music and having to do it, or like how do you even like begin to train that?
Right.
Yeah, it was this little tiny book, and it was like there would be, I don't know, it's just filled with sheet music on one page, but single line sheet music, so like just a vocal line, and there would be all super random intervals, like up to major tenths even. And so you'd have to just sing it.
Whoa.
But it was really challenging, but it was hardcore like training. I loved it.
Yeah, sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah, so I didn't really sing in college or anything like that, and then I sung a ton. Like when I was teaching, I sung all the time. But yeah, so then I realized, I have all this music in my head, and I'm like kind of getting a little bit antsy because I've been, as I mentioned, since I was a wee one, I had stuff coming in my head all the time. But I was super intimidated by the technology of it. And I was kind of frustrated. So I decided to stop teaching, and I was just going to kind of have a few of my private students going and stuff like that and take a break, right? And this is right before COVID. And so I'm like, okay, my kids are finally going to school. They're old enough to, they're just entering like preschool, and I'm like, yes, I get some time. And then I decided to just focus on music production. And I'm like, it's going to be harder for me than some. But I do have music theory. I have a huge base of like songwriting and musical knowledge that I feel is on my side. And the technology aspect, I feel like I'm just going to have to work harder at it than a lot of people, but that's okay. So I just dove in. I did like LinkedIn learning courses on Ableton. And then I finally came across the dojo, and I joined the dojo. And it was funny because back in the time I was doing the festival circuit, ill.gates was always playing on some stage at one of the festivals. Although we had never officially met, I just like knew of him. So it was kind of a full circle moment for me where I was like, okay, this is a sign.
Yeah.
And it was actually Trap Jesus's set. I think he played Fuck 2020. Do you remember that? Was that yours? Remember there was a song that you played on the New Year's Eve like dojo live set.
Man, I actually wasn't even on that, so it must have been somebody else. I was actually watching that.
It was pre-recorded or something, because I totally remember your hair.
Maybe it was a different one.
Okay. Anyways, yeah, so it was a full circle moment for me. So then I joined the dojo last January, 2021.
Yeah.
After seeing the live stream, or?
After seeing the live stream.
Yeah.
And and I just kind of did it. And it was a super good decision, and I was stoked.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think you're very right about having the musical chops first, is a huge leg up, because I think most people, and I'm not speaking for everyone, but I think most people love electronic music. They get into production, maybe have DJ'd a little bit, and they love music, but they don't have a deep understanding of its inner workings. And so, and this was pretty true for myself as well. Like, a lot of time was spent learning how to make music at all, and then a lot of time was spent at the same time trying to figure out like how the hell this music thing works. I could hear resolutions and things in my head. Like, I could hear how I wanted it to go sometimes, but it was a whole nother can of worms to actually learn how to be proficient at writing music. And if you can sit down at the piano and play something amazing, like, that's more than half the battle to write a good song. Like, if you can already write a good song sans computer, like, you can struggle through the computer bit and get some good stuff in there, right? So yeah, I definitely think that it gives you not only a leg up on people that are just starting, but also like kind of a different take on it than I think most people will have, right? Like, you know, which is good.
Yeah. Totally. I think at the end of the day, it's like, if you can sit down at the keyboard and play something, it's going to sound even doper once you produce it out. Yeah. But that's like, it has to be a good song, you know, to start out.
Yeah, and the vocals and the keyboard part are the song part, like the chord progression, the rhythm, the melody, the lyrics. Like, you know, I'm loving how a lot of like EDM songs these days are also coming out with like the acoustic version. That's like super stripped down, and you know, it's like the producer parts are kind of like way pulled back. It's beautiful getting to like hear just like the pure song. Like, if y'all know that hit Drive, when you find a love that's right, you can drive all night. That's my jam. And then I heard the acoustic version, and I think I might even like it at least as much as the original. And so awesome. Like, it's really cool getting that perspective of you coming from that composition background and like leaning into the production. And it's also been really cool seeing the collaborations you've been doing with other producers and the remixes and things. I'd love to hear about your experience with that.
Yeah, that's been, I honestly feel like I've kind of fell into a gold mine when I popped into the dojo, you know? So yeah, I met with Dylan in a one-on-one like last January. He heard my EP that I had just kind of self-produced. He's like, let's put this out. And then let's run a remix competition. So I sent all the stems to the dojo, and then we got a bunch of great submissions, and we chose like, you know, we chose 5 submissions for the remix EP that just came out. My Essence EP dropped in June, and then the Essence EP remixed dropped 2 weeks later in mid-June. So all those tracks are on there. And it was really fun because I like to be pretty hands-on with my collaborations. I have very specific visions and ideas, and I think I'm good at like doing a compliment sandwich where you say what you like, and then you say what you like. You're curious about changing this or that, and you know, it's all about, you know, collaboration, right? So you want the other person to feel it too. You don't want to just like thrust your opinion, kind of want to delicately inquire. And so there was a lot of back and forth. Like once we chose the 5, there were a lot of swapping sessions back and forth, and, you know, getting on Zooms together and producing in real time and adjusting the automation together in real time. And so, yeah, it was very hands-on. It wasn't like, here's the stems and like, do it and then it's done. It was like many swaps back and forth.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of being a part of a Dojo remix EP as well. My rapper friend Sam Shoemaker and I submitted a track to get remixed, and got Rip Kenny and 3 other awesome Dojo members to
I just got all those
of it.
I just got all those tracks signed to a dope sync agency, by the way.
Hey, congrats.
Amazing.
Hell yeah.
Wow.
So what was the remix track like for you? The
Similar.
process?
It was like from the time we got the first remixes back, like the first drafts of them, and chose the ones that we liked the best. It was like a full year before they dropped.
Oh yeah.
And that was like 8 months of back and forths. You know, not like all the time, of course, but it was definitely that give and take of like, all right, so here's our notes, here's Dylan's notes, give the remixers some time to work them and then bring them back. You know, it was a process, but wow, you know, the teamwork really made the dream work because the outcome was just 4 incredible tunes.
That's the dope thing about collabs is like it's better than it would have been on its own, I think.
Yeah, totally.
You know, because each person brings their own skill set.
Do you feel like you had a part of that when you were more in like the band kind of environment, and like you know, do you feel like you ever miss part of that, like having been in a band environment? I feel like collabs are kind of the producer way of doing that.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I do miss playing out live, and like the energy, the crowd and all that kind of stuff. So I do miss that aspect of the band. But yeah, being in a band, it was absolutely a collaborative effort too, because we're always, you know, making songs together. So,
and I can imagine a 10-piece band is a smorgasbord of feedback and comments, and it's probably pretty tough with 10 people to get a happy medium. I mean, sometimes it can be tough with 2.
Dude, and there was like all girls, and like everybody basically except for me like slept with everybody else. So it was like I was just there to play music, you know, and like I just was there my twice a week to do my stuff, and everybody else was coming with all this baggage.
Yeah, so much baggage. Oh my god.
Wow, that sounds like a whole can of worms.
It seems like
you were there to play music. Everybody else is there to play in general.
Yeah.
You needed a political science major to do the diplomacy for that baggage.
Oh, totally.
That's crazy. So speaking of your EP, so I know for Tesco and I, at least, it was nearly a year from like sending, you know, what we thought was like, these are the 4 sickest, to like when you actually released it.
Yeah, after scrapping like 3 EPs worth.
Dude, literally it took 12 songs to get the 4 for the EP that got released. So I'd love to hear, because I know a lot of people in the dojo for sure, and you know, many others would be interested to hear about like the inner workings of the process for releasing an EP. So what was it like start to finish, and how did it go?
Yeah, so the beginning portion of it was I just met one-on-one with Dylan, and we decided like these are going to be the 5 songs for the EP and for the remix EP. So we started there, and then I would submit songs all the time for Feedback Friday. To whenever I saw Dylan was up on a thing, I would submit it to him. And so I would take notes, and I tried to like rotate all my songs through. So I was able to get feedback specifically from Dylan for each of the songs. So that's how I started getting feedback from him personally, is just through Feedback Fridays. And then I compiled all my notes after I had all 5 tracks and notes for all 5 tracks done. I just made my Trello board and like went through the list, and I would send Dylan some version, you know, newer versions, and sometimes it'd be a while until I got feedback again. So I was kind of like not sure if it was decent or what. So and then I ended up working a lot with Lucy and Francis to address some of the issues that I didn't know how to address technically that were being called upon to change from Dylan. And so that was a really fun process, is to have him go in on the EP and get his feedback and expertise as well. That was like super fun. And then after we buttoned everything up, we sent it to Dylan, and it was due on, I think I'm like, you know, I was asked to have everything due on February 1st or something like that. And so I got it in on February 1st, and then the feedback started coming in. And so the feedback was like a lot. And
it is.
Like,
I don't think any single person that's released an EP would say the feedback process start to finish was not a lot, much less the final, like every round.
Didn't Unc just crank his out?
It was, yeah, it
like
was
first try or something.
Yeah, right. So
but us normal people.
I know. Yeah, so it turns out like I got the feedback, and I got COVID like right when my feedback came in, and naturally. I knew that I had to like turn it around in 5 days or something crazy. I did not move. I could not move. Like I was out for like 2 days. I could not do anything. So I'm like, okay, I have 3 days, feeling somewhat decent. So we just busted it out and got what we could to him. And then Dylan ended up at the final like 24 hours before it was due. Like he ended up going in and he completely helped out with like the drums on this one track. Loving's Coming Down on Me. We ended up doing it as a co-release, which was awesome. Yeah. And so, yeah, it has like a little touch of Dylan in there. And it was a really fun process. Dylan mastered the whole EP, and then Cryptochronica mastered the remix EP.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm just like so proud of us all that we did it. You know, it's a lot.
That's a lot of hands touching a project that, you know, it's your baby. And to be really satisfied with that final product, that's no small feat for that many people to come together and make something happen like that.
Yeah.
So did you have to scrap any tracks, or were those 5 like you just
they just
prodigy?
No.
I don't think anyone else has not had to scrap at least a track.
Really?
At least.
I mean, they changed, like the form of one in particular changed quite a bit with the order of the verses and the choruses and the interludes and all that. But in general, everything was kind of done. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was super fun. It was just fun for me to see my vision. I felt like the collaboration just made it better, you know, because it wasn't like we were changing the parts or anything. Like the bass line was the bass line, the chords were the chords, the drums were the drums. It was just we were swapping out samples and like, you know, making it sound better. So it was, that was the part that I really appreciated help with.
Yeah.
So
Lucian Francis, you know, I've seen his name floating around with yours quite a lot. How did you link up with him, and what's it like working with him? Is he like been producing for a while, or kind of what's that dynamic like, and how does that work for you?
Yeah, he submitted a remix for the EP, and that's how I met him initially. Is he did a remix and I loved it. And so we just kind of started working together. We went in on a cipher together, the Halloween cipher and then the Christmas cipher. And we ended up just doing full-on releases for those. And that was really fun. And yeah, we just would swap sessions back and forth a bunch and hop on Zoom once a week or something and kind of produce out the other stuff, you know, all the fun stuff. I love producing on Zoom. It's so fun. It's like tweaking the automations and swapping samples. It's just so fun. And so I've actually got this, and I've been working with memory code like a ton lately.
Sure.
Yeah. So
love that guy.
Yeah. So we've been getting on multiple times a week actually. And we have this super dope like EP that we're doing right now. I'm like, I think I can talk about it. So as you guys know, I'm a classical pianist. So I also work in sync licensing. So I write music for film and TV. And so I get songs signed to catalogs and they place them in shows and stuff. And so I have this whole catalog of piano music that I actually scored for piano and string quartet. And so all the classics, like Moonlight for Elise, like, you know, all the classics. And I recorded the string quartet and the piano. So have a whole catalog of that. And then I was like, it'd be super dope if we just had like some beats to this. And so I ended up finding out about memory code because it turns out we did a little bit of work together on the Star Wars project that recently was unveiled back in March. So there was this track that I sung to for the Star Wars Hotel, and I was like, you know, it's this group of mystery producers. So it's like, you don't know really who you're working with other than like the main guy. And so I tracked it down. I'm like, this style sounds familiar to me. And I tracked down memory code.
Oh my God, that's awesome. A, that's awesome that you were able to track him down, but B, that like he has such a sonic signature that it was like, yeah, this is this.
Yeah.
It was so rad. And so I tracked him down and I'm like, yo, I think like we might have worked on a thing together. He was like, holy shit, that was you with the alien vocals? It's like, that was next level. And so that was, so anyways, we're doing a lo-fi hip hop public domain classical EP right now. And it's like super dope. Like doing complete mashups of Claire de Lune and Moonlight for Elise. And just yesterday I got him signed to this super rad library. So
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we're gonna
big stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna, I don't know when we're gonna actually release the project. We're working on the 5th track right now, but the 5th and final track. But it's been really fun to do that. So
yeah, I'm curious to hear a little bit, and I know it obviously changes from track to track and all that, but given that you have so much experience in all these different domains of music, and production is kind of secondary in a sense to all of that, I'm really curious what your writing process looks like. Do you find you prioritize anything in particular? Do you find that you're especially strong at any one thing? And even if you find like you're weak in a certain area, like do you find there's just specific like things that influence your style, and like how do you like to go about writing a track?
Awesome. So yeah, I definitely have a very specific process for writing, and it was actually all validated. I took a class from Ryan Tedder last year, who has written for Bieber and Adele, and like all these people. And turns out he actually uses the same process I do. And it was so cool to like, you know that, hey, this is like not unique to me, you know. I always from you, actually. Yeah. So being a pianist, I always start out with a vibe, like without a doubt. I'm always sitting at the piano and I'm like thinking of my chords. I come up with a chord progression. And then after I do that, I typically will naturally hear like a bass line and some. Wait,
so sorry to interject here.
Yeah,
but
no
do you start with the 5 chord, or you start with 5 chords in a progression?
Oh, not 5 chords. It could be, I start with a chord progression. Okay. Like it could be 2 chords. It could be 8 chords. It's just a chord progression of some kind.
Got it.
And after I come up with my chord progression, I naturally hear like the bass and the drums and I just kind of get those out while it's hot. And then I will typically hear a melody pop into my head. And so at this point, it could be just like a 4-bar loop that I'm working with. It's not like a song yet, but in that 4-bar loop, I will usually hear a thing. And so I'll go into my vocal booth and I literally just start singing gibberish, like la's and oohs and dee-dees. I do not have any plan in mind. And like when I go in and I start singing and vocalizing, sometimes syllables will pop out. Like when I was writing this track, Stranded, that's on the EP, like I was doing this process and then the words, I don't want to be your island, like just popped out. I'm like, cause it was that was the cadence that I wanted to hear. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of a cool concept. Like, I don't want to be your island. And it sparked this whole concept for a song for me of like somebody who's relying on you too much. And like, you know, you're feeling smothered, or like it prompted this whole other line of thought. And so when I'm creating a song, I always start out with gibberish. Then I kind of listen to the universe or whatever. It's like, what's coming? What syllables? What consonants do I want to hear?
Yeah,
So-
you get the vowels first, you get the groove, you
Yeah.
get the melody, and then just like ask, okay, what message fits here?
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
cool.
And then naturally after that, like a chorus, because choruses for me are like, a good chorus is only going to have like 2 or 3 or 4 words, you know? It's like not a very complicated part of the song. It's like the thing that you want to drive home. So that part of the song for me is probably where my verses happen. And then from the verses derives a concept for the song that will then become a chorus later on down the road. So
I'm curious, once you kind of figure out the concept from there, are you still kind of like improving and finding melodies and then still trying to fit the words to that? Or like once you have your concept, is it a bit more of like a hand-in-hand approach with the lyrics and melodies?
good question.
How do you keep the concept flowing throughout your lyrics?
So typically I'll have the melody dialed, like with a piano line or with my vocal, like la la la's. And then comes the obsessive for months part of like thinking of the right lyrics.
All right, that makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah, that's like where I mull over each and every word and I look up the synonyms for each and every word and I make sure it doesn't feel too cliche and I make sure that it's universal enough to like have everybody relate to and not too specific. And so yeah, that sometimes takes months, you know.
So what does that look like then? Is it a lot of scratch vocals re-recording over that? Is it like, because one thing I found with vocals, now I feel a bit better about it, but especially early on, I would kind of have this hesitancy to do all this like layering and stuff if I wanted to change the word, or I would do all the layering and get the production sounding really cool and then be conflicted over like, I hate this word. How do you kind of work that in? Are you just re-recording all your layers from scratch every time, or are you like taking your time before you even go in for the vocal recording session to really like commit to what you want to say?
That's kind of how I do it, because you're right. If you were to open up any one of my sessions, you will likely see, and Rip Kenny knows, like at least 50 vocal stacks. And so I need to make sure I have the word that I want, you know? And so I, most of the time my lyrics come to me when I'm not near the computer. Like it's like when I'm swimming or in a hot tub or in the shower or when I'm driving or when I'm walking.
Yeah.
When
Big relate to that.
Yeah. So I try to really prioritize like my daily walks and stuff like that. And, you know, having kids, it's like if I can do an errand without them in the car, I'm like, this is where I put the instrumental on, you know, and I just on repeat. So, and I just take tons of notes on my, you know, on my iPhone. I have a running log of lyric ideas and concepts. I run it by my husband, like, you know, on a regular basis, because he really helps shine a mirror on certain lyrics and stuff like that. So I really appreciate having feedback.
Is he a tough A&R or is he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
My wife Shelby is a tough A&R as well, but I think it ends up being a good thing, because you want someone to tell you their honest opinion, and although that can be deflating to have the person you respect the most give you some tough feedback.
Totally.
But I think it makes you a better artist for sure.
And it makes the good feedback when they're like, oh my God, I love it, so real. Because you're not, are you just saying, no, you told me the last one was trash, so this one probably really is good. I'm going to release it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's been really fun also working with collaborators that like I did a track with Sixth Street, and you know, and it was just really fun because I think he was a little shy at first to kind of just brainstorm lyrics, because I think a lot of producers at first, they don't necessarily feel comfortable writing a lot of lyrics. You know, some producers are very comfortable, but not all. And so I think it's a really fun exercise is to just have a conversation and like come up with a concept and then just start. Like I have a game that I like to play where I say a synonym. Okay, let's play right now.
Woo!
Great.
Okay. Okay. So like you say a synonym and then you come up with another one. So I'll start first. Collide.
Crash.
Smash.
Intersect.
Right. And so we, you know, write all these down, and it's just like a brain dump exercise, you know? And so I feel like it's been really fun to work with other people and try to tease out the concepts that they're trying to grasp, but don't know quite how to say it. And so it's been really fun focusing on lyric writing in that way.
Yeah. I was just going to say that's one thing that, like, because when we were working on Sinister Intentions, you'll hear on the album, we did that a lot. Like,
I know,
we probably had like 5 or 6 Zoom calls.
Yeah.
Like, where we would just like go over like lyrics and just like literally sit there like blank faced trying to think of words. But like ultimately it resulted in something that I think like can't speak for you, but I'm quite proud of it.
I love it. Yeah.
That track even so some funny backstory on that, and then I'll actually dive into a little bit of the collaborative process on that, because I feel like it's worth touching on, because it is still to this day, I feel like the most front-loaded but also the most fruitful collaborative process I've ever had. But so that track started out with a song that I had written maybe 3 or 4 years ago that I really liked but never really knew what it would work on. It always felt like kind of an album track. And I sent it to you and we wrote some lyrics for it. And then it kind of dawned on me that, like, even though I really like the song, it's not quite in the stylings or production chops that I make now. So then I wrote a whole new song to the lyrics that we made.
I remember.
And of course, yeah, I was like, I'm taking a hard left on us. Bear with me. And of course, in that process, some of the sections no longer worked and we had to re-record. I don't want to say everything, but just about everything multiple times.
Yeah.
And
with
then
the 50 stacks.
Yeah, 50 stacks every time.
Every stack, by the way.
Straight up, the song that we collaborated on, start to finish, I think I have more hours into that project than any other that I've ever worked on, but like 300 hours. Like, no shit, start to finish.
Oh my gosh.
Like, even after the one that I sent you, I went through and re-recorded all of the guitars because the rhythm wasn't right, and like rewrote the first drop. Like the whole thing was an exercise in like getting closer and like chipping away at it. But it's definitely one that, like, because we had made it so much better, then I was like, okay, now I'm not, like, it all has to be that good. But yeah, so I wanted to touch on our process as well. Which was basically, so we decided we were going to work on a song together for the album. And like, I gave her the whole like concept for the story of the album. And then, I think it was your idea, actually. You were like, well, maybe we put together like a storyboard of, like, you know, words, concepts, ideas, photos, just like some stuff to provide inspiration. And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then when I was putting it together, I was actually like, wow, this is so smart, because not only does it help me organize what my vision is for you, it also crystallizes the vision for myself as well. Like the imagery, like I, you know, searched Google Images for like stuff that I felt like matched the vibe, and then came up with just some words, like brain dump thoughts, concepts, yada yada. And then when she came back with some lyrics and some melody, it was already so fucking close to like the perfect thing in my head. Like I've never had that happen. Normally it's such like a, like half the lines in the verse are like close but not there, and then the chorus, like the melodies, like you want to screw with it. Like everything was so close already. And I feel like that is, although more work up front, like you end up for a collaboration getting better results that you're like both happier with.
Totally. I mean, I remember when we were having a conversation, I was there like just typing like keywords of what you were saying, and then all the images that you sent me were just so spot on. I'm like, oh my God, that was just brilliant. Like that whole document you provided.
Yeah, it worked great. And I have to say, I think y'all are gonna love the song.
Oh, for a fact, I can already tell.
But it wasn't a quick one. It was a labor of love. But yeah.
So on that, you know, we talked a little bit about lyrics so far, and you talked about vocals kind of being a new thing for you, and this is what really sparks my curiosity, because it was for me as well. And there was a lot of, despite knowing all the kind of music stuff, a lot to learn about vocals. They're a very unique instrument. And one of the things that I felt like was a significant part of my journey was like learning tone and projection and how to feel out the vibe of the track. And I'm curious, like when you go into a session like that, when Evan gives you like a list of words and gives you pictures and all this stuff, how do you kind of channel that vibe then into your singing? Like, what do you think about when you're trying to convey that emotion? Just from like a pure like sonics way, like how do you like kind of manipulate your voice and like find the right tone?
Gosh, I don't know that I have that much technique to be able to manipulate my voice all that much. Honestly, I feel like that is a path that I would love to go down, but I kind of just go, I write melodies that are comfortable in my range. And like, you know, we make sure the track's in the right key and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, and when I'm tracking vocals, I mean, I have my loop bar on, and I'm sometimes recording like a 4-bar phrase, like over and over and over. And then I'm comping the vocals to where I have the syllable, just like I like it here. And then I match it with the next one. And so I'm very, like that editing process is very heavy on the editing process for me, because I think, you know, it's like not my main instrument. And so I know what I want to hear, but you know, going into session, I do have certain vibes that I'm working with. Like Rip Kinney had another track where I had to belt something, and it was like so awkward for me. But I did it. But yeah, it's definitely, it was out of my comfort zone, but
that's where we grow.
You know, it's so cool to hear you say that, because listening to the project, I definitely felt like you had a way more vocal experience than you're saying now. So that's really cool. Yeah.
Like when we were working
can imagine
together,
you know, what it'll look like. Yeah. Like I figured you were probably like doing vocals like just as long or whatever, because it seemed like a very natural kind of like fit for your style, and it just, you seem comfortable doing it, and that's like a huge part of vocalizing too.
And the other thing that drew me to want to work with you is your ability to do, probably like you were talking about, the training with the atonal stuff, where it's like it's not just major intervals and minor intervals in your melodies, it's like dissonant half note steps. And in my head, like I guess worth mentioning, another thing that like about our process that like got us to a final result that worked really well is like once we had like the 80% vocal and there were like a couple melodies that or like harmonies that I wanted to add or whatever, like I would just take the vocal, like pitch it around in Ableton and then send her a stem of like the pitched one and be like, can you sing this? And like every time you just absolutely nailed it. And some of them were weird. like really weird. Like
That's true,
I would
yeah.
struggle to sing them. And like I could hear it in your own music too. You have the same melodic sensibility of like dark, interesting type stuff. And that's not easy to sing. Like I know from experience, like I have less experience singing than you, I think. And like anytime I have to sing like a tritone and then like dip like one semitone or something strange, it's like 100 takes. It's like your voice, like you don't normally ever sing something like that, and then like to get your brain to do it is so much harder in practice than in theory. Plus you have to nail the pronunciation, you have to nail the tone, and so it's like it's so much harder to get the right take when the melody is doing a weird thing. So yeah, I guess just kudos to you.
Yeah, that's why I loved working with you, is because it's just a dark, it's, you know, melancholic, and I don't know, I love that kind of music. So
yeah,
you know, it'd be really cool. I'd love to hear from the both of you. Like, what's one takeaway from this project? Like something you learned from each other, or something that, I don't know, maybe you had a breakthrough on, or a cool little trick you learned.
I think for me, like the fact that she had the idea to get organized on the front end, that was probably the biggest lasting takeaway that I've had, because, you know, I've probably worked with 10, 15 vocalists, and I've never felt like as on the same page and satisfied like the whole way through as I had with Kristen. Like we were just bouncing off each other, and like the whole thing was just very smooth. And I think that a lot of that had to do with like us taking the time to figure out the concept, to figure out the vision and the ground floor of what we wanted to do really solidly first. So that's one for me. I know we already talked about that, so I'll think about something else.
Yeah, for me, I think when, you know, we spent hours, and we spent a lot of time recording over that first initial song idea that Evan had. And so I spent hours recording, and then when he decided to take a hard left and like change it all up, I think instead of feeling like annoyed or frustrated, I was like, okay, this is a chance for me to learn how to hone my vocal process, how to become more efficient. Like this is part of the process. And so I feel like for me, I actually took that opportunity and I dialed in my vocal process so hard. Like I feel so excited about like the way that I do my vocals now. And it's like every session I open, it's the same process, it's the same color coding, it's the same system. And so I think Rip Kinney for that. Because you know, so cool. It's like what's that phrase? It's like necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Yeah.
Just apologies for my OCD in advance.
No, well, and that's all good. Like I think that this is after working with Dylan too. He's the same way. Like he changes his mind like all the time, and I think true like artists do that, and like that's part of the process, and it's to be expected. And so no apologies needed at all.
I'm not gonna lie, I was still like so nervous when I sent you that message. Like she's gonna fucking hate me. Like, she's gonna be pissed. Like we had a whole song, and now it's like nah, new one.
To be fair, a lot of people would be.
Of course,
it's awesome to have the open-mindedness to switch it up that drastically.
Yeah. And it's not like we didn't. The concept was the same. The ethos was the same. A lot of the lyrical content we still reused. We still had to rewrite about 40% of it. But I guess the takeaway is if you're going to work with someone, like have that initial meeting and make sure that you're both on the same page, on the ground floor, and bought in, because it really is a long haul to finish something you're proud of. And I think all is forgiven when the song comes out and everyone's like, holy shit, this is great. But what can happen instead is that person is self-conscious about potentially telling you that like, like I'm not really happy with this. Like, and instead of like trying to pivot and make it work because you wouldn't have a good relationship with that person, or you're nervous to tell them your real thoughts, the whole thing just gets shelved and then it never comes out.
Right.
Then it becomes like that's a waste of time.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Like, so that's definitely something that I hadn't realized was as important. And I think I mean, just being candid here, like I've never done that either. Like, I think because it was going on the album, which is like in my head, like clearly has to be the top of the top echelon for what I'm capable of. Like, it became clear that that's the only way that I was going to be happy with it. And so like, it is kind of an exception to do that much work. But that being said, like, you have to work with someone that you trust, that you feel comfortable with, that you feel is mature and understands you and the vision, because that's when you actually make gold. And sometimes it takes 300 hours, sometimes it takes 20. But when you have that relationship with someone and you trust them and you trust their work and you trust the communication between you two, that can make a world of difference.
And I totally appreciated the specificity of your vision. You know, a lot of times you get an instrumental track from somebody and it's like they don't know what the concept is or what they want it to be about. They don't have any specific vision. But the fact that you took the time to record your auto-tuned vocals with the like atonal runs that you did, I liked that. It's like, I love working with nothing, no vision at all, and creating something from scratch. And I also love working with like, this is the vocal line, these are the words. And like, I think for a producer that takes a level of confidence, especially if, you know, if you're trying to convey vocals to a vocalist and you don't have the confidence to sing yourself. I think that that's a skill every producer should learn, is to like record your melodic line somehow, like on a piano or with autotune or whatever. Because we appreciate your input and like want to hear what your vision is.
Yeah. And I think like even if you're not working with a vocalist, like you need that skill, right? Because even just writing a melody that you're clicking in the piano roll, like you could write 10 trash melodies, clicking stuff in and moving it around, trying to make it work. And if you just whistle or sing gibberish, like you were talking about, you're probably going to get way closer on those 10 than you would if you're just, you know, going by Braille.
Totally. And you know, that reminds me, one of my exercises I did in college, I had a teacher in one of my music theory classes. We would start the first 10 minutes every day. He played harmonium and we would sing ragas. Like, he would just sing a melodic line. We would repeat the melodic line. It was always within a particular scale, but the melody was always dancing all over the place. And so I feel like even that, like to sit down at a piano and just hold like the same bass notes in an ostinato like over and over again and just improvise in a particular mode or scale or key is so valuable of an exercise for anyone, you know?
Yeah, really, I found that improvisation of all types really unblocks those like the mental sticky places where like, is this good enough? Like, it doesn't matter. Just don't stop singing.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I found it like, it works, like you said, it works if you're jamming on the piano or a guitar. It works if you're singing melodies. It works if you're like rapping freestyle lyrics, which is something I've done for a long time. And people like get so worried about the words. And because I've got so much experience just letting them flow and not worrying about what they are, I could just like pour ideas out and like, do you like this one, this one, this one, this one, this one? Oh, that sixth one, that's the one you dig. Okay, cool. And I'm not worried about the other 5.
Exactly.
Because I've recognized that there is like an endless creative flow you can tap into. And
And it's good to
like
not be
hitting muscle
precious.
memory. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can't be precious with like the one phrase. It's like,
No, this is the way it's gotta be.
Yeah. Like, I know for me, when I was just getting okay at doing vocals, like, that would happen a lot. Like, you spend 2 hours writing the whole song, and like in your head, that first day when you wrote the chords and everything, you're like, yup, this is it. I got it. And then you lay it down and, you know, you start getting feedback and you're like, man, people don't really like half these, or like, you know, half these lines in the verse. But I, you know, you just get too precious of it. You like think to yourself like, oh, I like them though. Like, I liked them. Like, I think they're good. Like, you just get too precious over it, because it's such a, lyrics especially are such a personal thing. And like, because it's such, like, lyrics and voice, like, especially tied together, like, it feels so much of part of you that it can be an extremely touchy dance to like let that go until you've actually trained that skill of like not being precious. Like, you have to teach yourself and learn and practice that. Because especially with lyrics, melody, singing, like, it's tough.
Yeah, especially, you know, after you write a really good song, you have to have the mindset of like, my best song is yet to come. I just wrote a really good song and there's an even better one on its way.
Amen.
You know?
Yeah, that's a really good mind state to keep in, because I've definitely been in places in my life, and it's funny to think back now because that place was so many years ago, so many better songs ago, but I thought I had hit my peak. Like, I don't think I'll ever write a song that good again. I think I've peaked. And like laughing at, like, I was 19 when I thought I peaked. And just because they'd had like a few months of like a slight slump in my perceived quality of songwriting after this one that I really dug. It's like, you just keep pushing and don't judge yourself too harshly. You mentioned, oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I was recently at a concert, and there was this group. They were playing Americana, and everybody in the band was probably over the age of 70. And there was this one woman who played slide guitar. She was 88. And the thought dawned on me that like with music, you just keep getting better. Like, you know, like with age, you just get better and better and better. And
it's not like basketball where you peak at 24.
Right. It's like you're going to just get better. And so, I don't know, I had that that thought.
That's such a key thing too. Like, enjoying the journey. Like, I always hated hearing that answer, because I wanted to know how to do the vocals right now, because this song needs it, and I'm not gonna wait for this song. So it's like almost this entitledness of like, I want it right now and I should be able to. And it's like, all of these things in theory are not even that hard per se, but it's a lifelong journey to just pick up the subtleties and the nuances and really like, you know, it's like the small subtleties of like the English language, and there's like all these idioms that don't make any sense, and there's double negatives, and there's like all this, there's all these rules and then all these exceptions to the rule. And it's like, when we talk, we don't think about it. We just know through what we've heard how to articulate it. And with music, there's like a big part of that too, where it's like, you can be doing the 1-4-5 properly, but it can still feel off because you're not like, you just haven't had that experience yet to really like, for every single concept, it's just like, you gotta feel it. There's a difference between knowing it and then like feeling it in your core. And when you get to that stage, then it's like, after you said with the vocals on that track, after you dialed it in, you had the process, like now you have something to move forward with. The whole like journey that we're on is just picking up little things along the way, and none of them are that hard individually, but the more tools you got in your toolbox, now you can try different combinations, you can try doing it in different ways, all that. And it's crazy how there's almost like this like hump creative hump. You're like pushing this rock up a mountain, fighting writer's block and all that. And when you finally pass that point, it's like the rock just goes down the other side of the hill. And it's like the ideas just don't stop from there. And I think that's a really healthy mindset to have. Definitely, I wish I adopted that a little earlier. And I think that's something really important for people listening to take away. It's like, you don't have to write that banger EP this year, no matter how bad you want to.
Right.
Like, why not in 5 years? Why is that bad? Why not in 10? Like you said, the best shit is yet to come. And that's like part of what makes the journey so exhilarating, is gives you something to look forward to.
Totally.
Yeah,
totally.
literally. And it's so funny how, like, I don't know about you guys, but I think I had those kinds of I want it now thoughts like in my first 3 years of production, or like you're writing a song and you're like, yeah, it's gonna be like the Tomorrow World theme or whatever. You're like, oh, this is gonna be so sick. Like, oh, it's gonna change my life. Like that. I don't even have those thoughts anymore. Yeah, like nothing is that important anymore. I'm still just as proud of good stuff that I make, but nothing is blown out of proportion. I just like enjoy doing it, you know?
Yeah.
That leads me to ask you all a question.
Okay.
You know,
The tables have turned.
Yeah. So why do you make music?
I don't have a choice.
Because it's fun.
I gotta.
Honestly, it's kind of like
in the back of my head, and it'd be rude not to get it into the world.
Yeah.
It's trying so hard.
I heard some famous musician describe it as like a drug addiction that can support itself. And I was like, that's not a bad way to put it, to be honest. Because I definitely like start feeling the itch after like a week or two if I'm away. If I don't have any creative output, I definitely feel like some internal something's not all right.
Turmoil. Yeah, Tesco, because you said I have no choice, right? I can totally relate to that. That's
it's like a blessing and a curse. Or some other artist, I can't remember exactly who. I was reading an interview and they're like, what's your relationship with music? And he's like, honestly, it kind of feels like making a deal with the devil, in the sense that like I get this really cool thing and I can go on tour and make music that connects with people, but every waking second of my life is like wrapped around this like one thing, and everything I talk about or do, or like if I'm going clothes shopping, I'm listening to the music playing on the speakers. He's like, it's kind of like this double-edged sword where like, it's the best thing in my life, but I can't get away from it.
Dude, literally, like every single song you hear is broken apart into 100 pieces. Snare's too loud. That sound was harsh. Like even when I'm at a festival, it's like constantly running through my head. Oh, they fucked that up.
Yeah.
Oh, that was sick. Like everyone's vibing to that, like mental note, like that kind of vibe works. Like all of it is just a consistent information input output, and you're like, did I even have fun?
Dude, I can't even like go to
download what happened.
I can't even do a proper shavasana in yoga class because I'm there like analyzing the intervals.
Ambient music playing in the back. You're like,
for real.
This one has a lot of sub bass for an ambient tune. I wonder if that was intentional or if
the sound bowls are at a fifth.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen that meme? It's like the people at a party and it's the one dude standing in the corner like with the beer and he's like, they don't even know this snare sounds like shit, and all the people are dancing. You're like, why has that guy been standing in the corner all night?
Yeah, no, I feel you. Music can get really distracting for me. There are certain like parts of my life where I specifically don't put music on because it's like I know like sometimes I go to work, like sometimes it's nice to have music on, but I know for a fact that if I'm doing something I gotta pay attention to, I will be pulling my phone out every 3 minutes to be like, oh, who's this? Oh shit, who's this? Oh shit, who's this? Like, oh, this needs to be on that playlist. Oh my gosh, right? And then it gets to the point, like, humble brag, I was making out with somebody the other day, and she had put on music, and I actually, like, had to pause, like, hey, can we actually turn that music off? I'm, like, thinking about it an equal amount to how good it is to kiss you, and I want to change that ratio to 100% thinking about kissing you.
Yeah.
Because,
oh, man.
you know.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, come on, that's snare. And she's like, what? And you're,
I know.
Bro, I gotta tell you a story.
Come on,
Did
what
I
now?
Did I say that out loud?
Yeah, it's a gift and a curse, but everything has a double edge, right? And I think you mentioned something earlier about education and how you need like a real emotional intelligence to be able to be an educator. But I think like I've been hearing so many things in this conversation that's true for. Like it really takes a lot of emotional intelligence to collaborate. It takes a lot of emotional intelligence to like deal with what's going on in our own head as creatives with our insecurities, our impatience. It takes so much like, and it's a process. We want it now, that Veruca Salt syndrome, like Willy Wonka vibes. And like, we want it right now, but we have to learn to know that it's a process that we got to enjoy. And that sometimes it takes like a tangent to get us where we're really going. Like, the road ahead is blocked. Take the detour, go the scenic route. Like for me personally, I was working so hard in this very like divine masculine, like, let me go get it, crush my goals, doing every single night, stand up super late, like draft after draft of these songs I was working on. It's going to finish them all. And I ended up just having to like stop 100%. And just be like, these songs are all dead to me for minimum 3 months. I'm not even going to listen to a single one of them because I've lost all perspective. And right when I made that decision, somebody was like, hey, you want this DJ gig? And I was like, it's the pandemic. Of course I want a DJ gig. Get me out of my house. I'm going insane. And that has sparked me off on like this last year of DJing more than I ever have. And it's been such a blast. And taking time away from writing and recording and engineering music has put me on this path of more DJing and dancing, which has led me to understand what I actually like about music and what other people actually like about music, and has gotten me out of my head and into my body so much more that it's like, now that I'm coming back to writing a lot more music, it's like, oh man, these songs are that much better because I'm not trying to do all this shit I feel would be impressive in my mind. I'm just doing the shit that makes me want to dance. That reminds me of that song. You're like, oh, that would blend well with that song I already love playing. Let me just make it good enough to sit next to that.
That's awesome. What about you, Rip Kenny? Why do you make music?
I think just because it's fun. Honestly, like there's just like, actually, I think we might have touched on that in an earlier podcast. I think I more eloquently realized why I make it. Which is like creation is like innately satisfying. And I think that's where I'm coming from with the like, it's fun. Because like if you sit down on the couch and binge watch Netflix for 12 hours, like that's fun. But at the end of it, you feel the consumption. You intake all of this stuff and you mentally know that time was fun but spent consuming. And at the end of a 12-hour music session, when you have a full rough draft of a song, you feel great.
Yeah.
Like
Amen.
You just feel so innately satisfied. Like the intrinsic motivation of making music when you just made something you like.
Yeah.
It's so like deeply spiritually like completing,
It's a flow state.
Yeah. And it's just like, I think that is the reason that I continue to do it.
Totally.
And I just wanted to add on top that I totally agree with Luke. When he said that, I realized that one of the reasons collaborating you was so fun is because you have a very high EQ. So
Thank
kudos.
you. Thank you.
High EQ or high IQ?
EQ, emotional, like it's basically emotional.
Oh, the
quotient.
emotional quotient
Yeah.
instead of the intelligence quotient. I got that. I like that.
Yeah. I'm kind of
That
like
high
Tesco.
EQ, the air on top of your voice just sounds.
I know, right? Yeah.
Well, that too, but
You
yeah.
really brought that out. I'm right there with you, Tesco. It's like I have no choice. It's like I have to, otherwise I get antsy. Excuse me. And I think that like specifically, it's been a little challenging for me being a mom because, excuse me, because my, you know, my focus cannot be solely on music at all times when it's like, that's what I really want to be doing all the time. But I have to, I homeschool my kids 3 days a week too. So that's like another thing that's like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing that too. Like that, I don't, you know, it's because I like flexibility. I like freedom of choice to, you know, go to a museum or, you know, just do random outdoor things instead of, you know, stay in a classroom. There are reasons why I do that. But I think making music is a double-edged sword because it's like most times I'm hanging with my children. I have to try consciously to like be open and present, and because I could so easily be like thinking about the verse or the melody or whatever. And so it's, I think, especially challenging being a mom and a music producer, you know, because
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah,
geez.
it's a lot, but it also crystallizes. I always like look for the silver lining in things. And so I think having kids could have so easily been an excuse for me to not make music. I'm like, I am too busy. There's too much input. There's these other things I have to focus on. And so I think having kids has crystallized my priorities for me of like, yes, I am busy AF and I also want to do this. And so I need to prioritize it. And I totally prioritize it. Like my husband is amazing. He does like bedtime every single night with the kids for years now. And I'm like, I have this thing. I'm like, oh, I feel sadness that I'm not reading bedtime stories to them and all this stuff. But I'm like, okay, this is my choice. This is how I'm getting it done. It's like I work basically from 8 to 2 every night. And then, you know, I sneak in several hours during the day as well. So,
wow,
that's pretty good.
That's
yeah. So I feel almost like having the lack of time makes me prioritize things. So like knowing if I had a 6-hour stretch of time to like write my breakdown, I would be like choosing samples all day. But if I know I have 1 hour to write this breakdown, I'm like, okay, we're spending 5 minutes on this. We're spending 20 minutes on that. And I feel like I am more efficient. Like my mom once told me, if you ever need to get something done, ask a busy person. And now I know what she means. It's because it's like, if you are busy, you know how to prioritize your tasks and get stuff done. And so like, I feel having kids has crystallized that for me. And also I make music because I personally was so incredibly affected by music. Like as a teenager, it just brought, as I think we can all relate, you know?
Yeah.
That it just brings us to emotional landscapes that are otherwise not available, right?
Yeah.
Like listening to music brings us to places in ourselves that are so beautiful and so, you know, new with each song. It's like, it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So I love doing that for people.
Yeah, totally. Well, I feel like this portion of the conversation has tied a pretty nice bow on our talk here. If you would like to plug anything coming up and give us and the world your socials, how to reach you.
Absolutely. So go look me up, Dream Tonic, and my website is dreamtonicmusic.com, and you can subscribe to my newsletter. And I have all sorts of fun videos up there and stuff. I have a release coming out on Friday, and it's a lo-fi late night beat tape track. It's really dope. like lo-fi and opera all
Dope.
combined.
Awesome.
And then, yeah, we're going to be releasing, I have releases in September, October, and December. I'm probably slating the classical EP, lo-fi hip-hop EP for November.
Wow.
And you have a release in August as well. And
a release in August
on the album
11th.
I feel like the perfect way to end this would probably just be to play it for everyone.
Woo!
Just a nice little outro here.
You heard it her first, folks. You heard it her first. I'm sticking with it.
Right.
I'm just gonna start saying it like that now.
Great.
Here first.
You heard it her first.
All right. I'm gonna share my computer audio. Let's get some thumbs up from y'all if when it starts playing you can hear it.
Hold on, wait. I'm early.
And I'm gonna play it in 3, 2, 1.
Sheesh.
Jesus.
Yes.
Woo!
That's actually crazy. I can only imagine the amount of time that took.
I was imagining hearing it on the Gorge main stage at Base Canyon. Seems like the next stop for that song.
Yeah, agreed.
Just like 40,000 kids just headbanging their asses off to it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, wow.
That was worth 300 hours.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations to your EQ for putting up with all the changes, and I think the amount of effort on both sides was worth it for sure.
Yeah,
Amen.
for sure.
Woo.
Yeah. I'm so pumped for your album.
Yeah, me
So
too.
pumped. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, actually, I have one more thing I wanted to give you real quick. You're talking about the kind of that balance of like going for your music and spending time with your kids, and that little voice that's like, oh man, I could be reading bedtime stories, that'd be so sweet, but I gotta be over here. And as the child of a poet who, when I was a small child, made the choice to go full time and make poetry her living and still is doing that, like that example of watching my mom do what she's actually put on the world to do and spend her time doing that while also being a loving mom and spending time with me was such a great gift. Makes up for so many story times.
That just
Because
gave me
she
chills.
showed
Thank
me
you
the
for
story
sharing
of her
that.
life.
Seriously.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
So cool.
Wow.
And on
Wow.
that note,
Yeah, that was an amazing episode.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Beautiful.
sharing all that with us and taking the time. I was very insightful, I felt, and honestly, like I said, very surprising to hear that you hadn't even been doing vocals that long, because I mean, even just listening to that track, like, it just, everything felt like it worked. Like,
It's dialed, right?
yeah, like it felt like you knew exactly what you're doing.
I felt the same way. So.
Yeah.
woo! And
That was so good.
so good.
Yeah.
The way we sign this out, first we give everybody a peace, and then a peace among worlds.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Awesome.
humans.
Thank you for having
Thanks
me,
for
you guys.
tuning in. Thank you.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Bye,
All
friends.
right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I like it.
All right, humans. Thanks so much for being with us here with Dream Tonic. Make sure to go check out dreamtonicmusic.com. Follow her at Dream Tonic. And go listen to her song of the week. That's Loving's Coming Down on Me off her new EP. And it's got an Ill.Gates collab in there, which is super big. It's a really fun jam. I played this live at my set at Samadhi Summer the other week. It was super fun. And you can go check it out in our Song of the Week Spotify playlist as well. Make sure to support our sponsors while you're down in those links. Get on Dojo TV if you're not already. That's free producer live stream classes. There's track feedback. There's all sorts of stuff over there from the Producer Dojo Senseis. And did I mention it's free? Get on it already. Tesco's Patreon, where you can get access to his Discord, track feedback, private lessons, and much, much more. The weekly download, where you can learn from our mentor Ill.Gates and his private weekly group lessons and get access to almost 300 more episodes in the archive for just $20 a month. And guest practices, where you can learn from Seth Drake at the Approach Institute. Dude is the best engineer we know, and your first class over there is free, humans. Check out thehumanmusicpodcast.com to find our socials, links to our sponsors, all that good stuff. Till next week, though. Peace. Peace among worlds.